Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to see such a bright, cheerful flock, and I'm happy to be clucking to you today about some of the work I've done as part of my PhD here at the University of Guelph. I'm going to share with you some of the results that I've found in Eimeria oocyst shedding in commercial broiler flocks in Ontario, reared under either conventional or antibiotic-free production. As we'll be discussing today, antimicrobial stewardship is a very important component of future production of food, including poultry. Locally, we have a few programs in place, RWA, such as Raised Without Antibiotics, and ABF. Now, transitioning to this kind of production is going to bring about a lot of challenges to farmers, but in this transition, how is this going to affect the pathogens found in broiler farms? Coccidiosis is one of the well-known intestinal diseases of the industry. It's the second reason we use preventative medications in the feed. There are several species that cause coccidiosis with varying severity. Now, although a number of different compounds have been developed to fight this disease, resistance is a concern, as both ionophores and chemicals have begun to show less effectiveness. The alternative is live vaccination, and this is used primarily in RWA production, and this relies on the chicken's natural immunity. Now, we wanted to investigate the cycling patterns between these two control strategies, vaccinating and medicating, and how it's occurring in commercial broiler flocks from across southern Ontario. So we enrolled 40 chicken farms from across the province, and we did a total of 60 flocks. Most were in the winter of 2017, but we also sampled last summer as well. There were a number of farms that were sampled both in the summer and the winter. We collected samples every 7 days following chick placement until 35 days of age. Samples consisted of a representative proportion from one floor at one house per farm. These samples were processed for oocysts per gram, which is an inexpensive method to determine the severity of the disease. So looking at the results from last summer, the yellow line is the vaccinated group and the blue is the medicated. Although you can't quite see the start there, the yellow line does have a few thousand oocysts per gram to start off. And then they quickly rise on day 14, and then the vaccinated group seems to taper off after that. Now this is our evidence of immunity being developed. The medicated group, as you can see here, shows a drastically different cycling pattern. As you can see, they have much lower oocysts on day 7 and 14, and then at day 21 they spike up quite high, and then they come down as birds get older. Looking at the data from the winter, we have a little bit of a different pattern here. The green line is the vaccinated group, and they're peaking at day 21 rather than 14 in the summer. And the medicated group is a little bit pushed back as well, as they're peaking on day 35, and they just seem to be increasing as the birds get older. So here's both the two graphs put together, as well as the averages highlighted. So what you can kind of see between the summer and the winter is that both control strategies are being shifted at a later stage. So the peak is coming a little bit later. And what I think is happening here is that the heaters are being run, so the barn is drier, and that would just mean that the parasites can't replicate as much, so their cycling patterns are just shifted by a week. So here it would appear that the medicated group is going to have higher counts than the vaccinated group, but there was a lot of variability in the medicated group, whereas the vaccinated group was fairly consistent in their cycling patterns. So if we were to just look at the medicated group, we can split them into three categories: low, medium, and high counts. You can see there's a number of farms there that have very low counts, almost non-detectable. There's a group that has detectable oocysts but good control, and then there's a third group that has quite high counts. So what's next? We're going to be identifying the species using a brand new technology for our lab at least, and it's using next-gen sequencing of the mitochondrial genome. And this will allow us to determine who's there and who's causing the most damage. We'll next test the level of resistance to the common drugs in the industry and test how we can reduce that level of resistance by using the live vaccination. I'd like to acknowledge my advisory committee, Dr. John Barta, Dr. Michelle Guerin, Billy Hargis, and Greg Page, the Parasitology Lab, and additional support from the funding agencies and companies listed here. Thank you.